there was a great introduction to my talk by both Albert setting up why it's so interesting, these sharing economy models, and also Luis Vives, who's now helping his wife to deliver her baby. He also really explained the phenomenon of the sharing economy that hopefully has grabbed your attention. And so now what I'm going to talk about, not going to repeat that much talking about the phenomenon, but I'm more going to talk about, now that you all want to create a business like that or apply it to the business in the future, how do you actually do that? So this is going to be a practical talk of how to do service design for the sharing economy. So as introduced, we look at disruptive shifts that are changing the society and business. And we deliver, in the context of those disruptive shifts, we deliver business innovation and service design. And we do that in a unique way by combining social science to understand how the world and how the society and people's lives are changing, experience design to create new solutions for that, and business strategy to anchor those solutions in the reality of business, of the market, and the organizations. So today, I'm going to talk about the end of the world. The end of the world as you know it. Because like we have seen in the previous talk, the world is really changing. There are a number of really deep, disruptive shifts going on that will change the way we work, play, and do business. We're moving from an economy based on ownership to access. We're moving from big corporations being the organizing hubs of our lives and society to systems of micro-business. Services are being delivered by companies in the past, and in the future, like all the examples that we have seen, services are delivered through networks. So these shifts together, we find them very interesting, and we say, let's go deep. Let's go really deep and conduct ethnographic research and business research all around the world and understand how that, who those people are that are living already a little bit in the future of this sharing economy. So we went to Denmark, to Brazil, Spain, India, China, and Japan to see how those people are already living a bit in the future. So we don't look for average consumers, like in classical market research. We look at what they call lead users. We also talked to a number of leading experts. Rachel Botsman, for example, author of the book Collaborative Consumption, and the founder of that movement, she actually was one of the experts that was happy to talk to us because that was before her book came out, not when her book was already out, but still we could track her down. So when you do all that, what do you get? This is what you get. This is what I call a post-it barf. Everybody knows what is barf? Maybe you don't know, but it's post-it puke, let's say, okay? That's maybe you know better. So this is what you get, all these little insights. You know, we are innovation consultants, so we use a lot of post-its. So this, can you make sense out of this? It's very hard, right? But working an iteration and iteration, when you have the whole room full of post-its, then you start to see things. So what did we see in all the countries that we visit? What is this? Anybody? What is this? Storage room, cellar, attic, in China, in Barcelona, in Denmark, everywhere, right? We are storing stuff that we don't need anymore, but just in case we are keeping it, por si acaso, right? But yet we will never use it anymore. And this is what we call the burden of ownership. The burden of ownership goes on over time. The joy of ownership, it goes up even before acquisition. Before we buy that new iPhone, that we have the joy of ownership. But quickly, it starts to go down when other things in our lives start to call for our attention. And this is what is seriously challenging the consumption economy. The idea that we want to buy more and more and more because we cannot have more in our lives. So a lot of people find interesting way to deal with this burden of ownership. For example, establishing the rule that we will remove something of our house if we want to buy something new. Also, this burden of ownership creates the whole idea of the sharing economy, because we realize that we have things in our house that maybe can be used for other people. Any guess how long do you think, how much time do you think an average drilling machine is used in the whole lifetime of a drilling machine? Anybody? Albert, you cannot give the answer.
20 years.
20 years? Yeah, over 20 years. How much time is it actually used?
0.1%.
Yeah, like 15 minutes over the whole lifetime of an average drilling machine. So does it make sense to own a drilling machine? It's convenient, right? So maybe we can share that with our neighbors. Just an idea. So, okay, we get the point why the sharing economy is happening. And so what happens, what is new that has not been there before, is that through technology we can create trust between strangers. So that becomes the new currency of the sharing economy. And these network business models, like they have been all been talked about, GiveGav, relay rights, Wikipedia, peer-to-peer banking like Zopa, they're disrupting traditional business. And it's very hard for traditional business to compete with this because, like Albert was saying, because the assets are not owned by the companies, they are shared. They're not too big to fail, they are too small to fail. There's nothing that can fail because everything is in the network. So now that we are really getting excited and we say we want to do this, how do we do this? So there are many names for this. We call them participatory service networks, and we have a whole paper about it that you can just ask by emailing us. And you can also explore it by going online. And the password is written there on the board over there, if you are curious about this. And I will show this now. Can you switch to the other screen? So this is the landscape where now highlighted are all the different sharing economy models. So most of these models are sharing economy models. So here we see, for example, the peer-to-peer car rental that we have been talking about. And the whip car is one of the pioneers. They don't exist, unfortunately, anymore. But this is how their model works. And I will show you now in a moment. So you have all access to this if you want to explore all these interesting models and want to build a sharing economy business. So we switch back to the presentation. So let's talk about Anna. So Anna, she has a boyfriend. She's 25 years old. She's a graphic designer, lives in Barcelona, you know, many Annas. But what's interesting about Anna is that she doesn't own a car. Obviously, she's 25, but she does drive a car. She drives social car, which is the whip car of Barcelona. She travels by Airbnb, has been mentioned before, and she travels by Trip for Real, another Barcelona startup, which gives people more real experiences. And how does she find work? How does she do work? She works by Swapsy. She doesn't work for Swapsy, but Swapsy is the platform that helps her to do work. So she's one of those future people. I meet Linda. Linda is a bit older. She already has 2 children, and she rents her car to Anna. And she doesn't know Anna, but she's able to rent her car to her because the trust between strangers and the platform. She just recovered from breast cancer. And patients like me helped her to talk to people like her that had gone through that same experience and made her feel much more comfortable and much more confident in front of her doctor. She cooks with others with Eat With. It's also a Barcelona startup. And she cares for others through Afables, another Barcelona startup. So the access economy drives new business models. In the past, we paid some money and in return, we get ownership for a car. That's how Linda got her car. And before Anna discovered social car, she was renting a car from Zipcar, you know, Avancar here in Barcelona. So that's the access economy. So the ownership is not transferred. But these newer models, these sharing economy models, are a bit more complex. There, Anna rents the car for a rental fee from Linda. And Social Car provides the critical things that make this happen. Provides the trust between strangers, provides insurance. Negotiate with the insurance companies, because don't do this at home, okay? Don't rent your car just to somebody because you heard me talk about this without using a platform, okay? Because if that other person crashes your car, the car gets stolen, your insurance will say, okay, I'm sorry, but that was not insured. So do it through a platform, because then there's a deal that covers the insurance. And for that, Social Car earns a small commission. That's why we say these models are too small to fail, because it's just Mar Alarcon and some people in her staff and a couple of servers. No, wait, there's not servers, they are renting the servers. So a very different way of doing business. So now that you really want to create your own business, let's look at how we can do that. So the approach to service design, the design of services, really has to change. So the traditional service design, we focus on the individual customer, like Albert was already saying. Then we design and deliver a service, and we try to own a unique relationship with the customer, the so-called branded experience. In network business models, it's very different. We have to uncover opportunities in the network rather than individual customers. We have to enable exchanges so that a service can be delivered. And we want to identify the role that you as a company will play in the ecosystem. So the first one, uncover opportunities in a network. So with service design, you think just about the individual customer, what do they need, and let's create the perfect service for that person. That doesn't work, because in a network, we have to think about what do people need, but also what do people have that they can provide to the other people. So it's a very different mindset, a very different consumer research that you have to do. So what could people exchange? So they could change connections like LinkedIn. They could exchange knowledge like Wikipedia. Everything has been talked before, but now we see it in a framework. And they could exchange resources, and they could exchange competencies, skills, like live Mokka, people teaching each other languages. And everything in the sharing economy can be captured in this. So this now becomes a framework to brainstorm new business models. What resources do people have? What connections, knowledge, and competencies? Then the second point we have to think about is how are people connected within the network? So when Linda was diagnosed with breast cancer, she asked her doctor, her doctor told her, and half of the language that the doctor told her, she had no clue what he was talking about, right? Because he had a much higher level on this staircase of knowledge. And then she went online on Patients Like Me and found somebody that went through the experience of having breast cancer just 1 year ago. So she was talking to what we call a peer leader, somebody who was just one step ahead of her in terms of experience. So it's very important to connect the right kind of people together in these networks, because there are many different steps. Then, how do we motivate people to join? We all know that it's sometimes quite easy to sign up for something new on the internet, but then quickly our interest goes down. So the motivation to join and the motivation to actually contribute something are pretty different. So that's why we have to think about what is the proverbial peanut. You know, a peanut is quite easy to understand. You say, I want a peanut. I understand this tangible benefit is small, it's token-like, and it's a simple and quick transaction. So think about what's the peanut to get people in. But then later also think about how do you motivate people to contribute, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Now we're going to talk about that. Enable exchanges to deliver a service. So when we think about the old school service design, we think about how do we create the fantastic user experience, the service journey with all the different touch points, right? With designing participatory services, we have to think about the network experience. We have to understand that each touch point in Anna's journey is a touch point in somebody else's journey, right? So Linda is providing one of these touch points, but there are other people that are providing the other touch points. So that becomes very different. Another tool is about how is value exchanged. So you can use this in a brainstorm. It's like a small canvas, a participatory service canvas. We do some post-its, some more post-its, where we think about who is exchanging value and what value is exchanged and how does the value exchange mechanism work, this model that we have been seeing before. And very quickly, you can brainstorm some different ideas. And then we have to think about when we lay out the service experience in a traditional service model, like with Zipcar or any rental car, we have these steps that she is experiencing from discover, join, use, and extend. And then the company has to do some things behind the scenes. It's called the service blueprint. This changes also because now we suddenly have a third person, the person that delivers the service and the platform. So this becomes a little bit more complex, but it's a very powerful brainstorming tool when we think through all these steps for all these different people. Then, how do we enable interactions and exchange? Another bad news for you. Something like altruism doesn't exist. Okay? People always do things for a reward. It might seem altruistic, but it's because they get happy from it. And I'm talking now about another slide, sorry. I did the same in the rehearsal, that's funny. So, I don't know why, but it's maybe the title. So, we have to think about trust. So there are 3 types of trust that we have to generate. The first, the trust in the value that is exchanged. I trust that the car from Linda, that it actually will drive, right? I trust the platform, I trust Social Car to take care of me when things go wrong, right? When the car crashes or something like that. But most importantly, I trust Linda, the other participant, that she will actually deliver the car on time with the keys so that I can do my weekend in Sitges. Now comes the point. Altruism doesn't exist. So people always make contribution because they get a reward. The reward can be emotional or functional. It can be about income, access, or information, for example. Or it can be about joy, reputation, that Albert was talking about before, or belonging. So always think about what rewards do we give people to keep this cycle of contributions going. And last, you have to identify your role in the ecosystem, what kind of owner you want to be. So in the past, the role of the company, the brand, right, is to create brand love by delivering a service experience, and you want that one-to-one relationship with the customer. But not in these new models. The brand is there to support the exchange between people and to facilitate relationships among people. So it's a very different relationship, and you don't want to say, I want to have this branded experience because the people that are delivering the experience are not working for you. And then the roles. So you can have different types of roles, from host to community creator to community orchestrator, and this just means different levels of engagement. I'll keep it a bit short because we're getting at the end of our time. But also you have to think about the enabler roles. Facebook is not a participatory service network, right? Everybody is on Facebook. There's not one specific value that's exchanged. But it's a huge enabler because they gather the crowds and they help to generate trust between strangers. Then you have builders, like our partner Lithium, who actually do the plumbing of these networks. Or network enhancer, like PayPal, that make peer-to-peer payments possible, which makes it much easier for these networks to work. And lastly, how do we start and grow the network? Now that you really say, yes, I'm going to start a new business, I get the models, how do you do it? It's not that easy. It's not like a regular model where you create a product or a service and then you launch and then it happens. No, you have to first emerge, create a platform. So it's a bit like a garden. You know, a garden, you can give it water, you can cut, you can grow, but it doesn't just, you have to leave it grow by themselves, right? The same with these kind of platforms. So first to emerge, create a platform so people can start to exchange. Then you seed it in the right way. LinkedIn is extremely different than Facebook because the first people that were populating the network. So the seeding is important. And then you nurture it. You give it water, you give it fertilizer, you give people tasks, you contribute people for their contributions. And then you need to weed. If Linda if Anna, for example, doesn't bring back the car on time 2 times, we have to give her a warning. A 3rd time, we have to kick her out of the network because she brings down the overall user experience of the other people. And lastly, we have to allow it to adapt, right? To grow new branches, to grow new services. If somebody starts renting out, let's say, vans on your social car, let it happen. Let it cater for these new needs that are apparently developing and these new offers. So, to conclude, service design has to be practiced in a very different way for these network business models that are so interesting. So good luck and welcome to the end of the world, as you know it.